We are Frank and Daphne, a couple of not-so-young cycle tourists from Canada, and we're off on another adventure in Europe. This time we're setting out to explore the Via Claudia Augusta, a historic route through the Alps that follows an old Roman road that connects the River Danube and the Adriatic Sea. We're flying into Frankfurt, so we'll be riding a few hundred extra kilometres from the airport to get to where the Roman road begins. So join us as we make our way from Frankfurt in Germany to the city of Venice in Italy, following in the footsteps of the Romans.
Sabroso, señoras y señores, este es un baile que se llama cha-cha-cha. ¿Cómo es?
Hotel Enjoy was quite enjoyable last night. It was a modern hotel. The town of Polesella, which we just left, is on the north bank of the River Po and about 25 kilometres northeast of the fine city of Ferrara, which we visited yesterday afternoon. What an interesting place that is, so well worth a visit. The Castello is particularly impressive. Anyway, we have a route planned out for today on Komoot, which pretty much follows EuroVelo 8. And we're getting ever closer to the Adriatic Sea. It's now been 3 days since we completed the Via Claudia Augusta by reaching the town of Ostiglia on the River Po. And up till today, we've been travelling along the south or right bank. We just switched sides in Polesella last night. It's the bridge we came over last night in quite heavy traffic. Very pleasant riding this morning. We have even a little bit of a tailwind. The Po is a huge river. It drains a huge area starting in the Alps. I think it's west of Turin, and all of the big lakes in Italy, Maggiore, Como, Lake Garda, they all drain into it eventually. And as it heads towards the sea, the delta becomes just a tangle of channels and canals and marshlands. It's so hard to believe that 2 years ago, in 2022, Italy had a terrible drought. I remember hearing about it when we were cycling in northern Italy, and the Po at that time had almost completely dried up. That is hard to imagine. All the beehives. This community is called Villanova. Down off the levee to visit the little village of Pepozze. wondering if there might be coffee, but not a lot of signs of life so far. We found a coffee shop at the end of the street. Well, we did find the only bar that seemed to be open in that little town and had nice coffees and snacks. And it's 12:30. So we've now started to go northwards. We've left the Po now and we're going north. This is a very interesting route that we planned on commute. Not sure if this will take us where we think it will. Let's see. It's definitely off the beaten track. This road did turn out okay as it happens. And not long after this, as we wove our way through a network of canals, we met up with, surprise, surprise, our old friend the Adige River, which we had last seen in Verona. We had seen the source of this river way back at Rhetian Pass near the Austria-Italian border, and now we're seeing it again just before the end of its journey as it enters the Adriatic Sea. As we approached Chioggia, we started to see a lot of market gardens. Pretty soon we did have to negotiate a busier road, but we soon got on to some little roads and pathways that led us eventually along some inner lagoons. We found our way across the short causeway bridge onto the actual island of Chioggia and entered the delightful Centro Storico. We had made good mileage today with the help of some great tailwinds, and earlier in the afternoon we had booked an apartment here in Chioggia's historical centre for 2 nights. So we were very excited to have made it to this big milestone on the ride. We had arrived at about 4:30, so we had time to join the locals and the tourists for the traditional late afternoon aperitivos, before checking into our little apartment off the main corso. We were looking forward to exploring this little Venice as it's known, but tonight we settled for a great seafood dinner and a short stroll along the canals. Chioggia is such a cool town. The place has a similar feel to Venice, but is so much more laid back and less crowded. We loved wandering around here, exploring the narrow streets and canals. It's an old settlement, much older than Venice, and has plenty of evidence of the Romans having been here. The town's cathedral stands next to the St. Mary's Gate, also known as the Garibaldi Gate. The original old bell tower of the cathedral from 1347 stands in the square beside the cathedral. This bell tower has suffered many disasters over the years, but has always been lovingly rebuilt by the residents. Further up the lively main street called Corso del Popolo, you find St. Andrew's Clock Tower, which has one of the world's oldest working clocks. The city was renowned for its salt pans, considered among the most valuable of the Mediterranean, and this used to be the key economic driver here for a time. But after the salt pans of the lagoon were exhausted, fishing took over as the main industry, and the town became famous for its fishing markets in the 18th century, having grown one of the biggest fishing fleets in all of Italy. Over to the east of the historical centre of Chioggia, connected by another causeway, is quite a different area called Sotto Marina, where miles of holiday apartments and cramped campgrounds and the usual seaside amenities can be found along a very long beach. We did ride our bikes over there to have a look, but this area held very little appeal for us, except for the beach itself, which is quite lovely, especially now that it's the end of the beach season and all the beach umbrellas have been put away and we almost have the beach to ourselves. We weren't quite ready to leave Chioggia after 2 nights, so we extended our stay for another day and used the extra time to catch up on laundry, do some more strolling and imbibing in a few more Campari and Aperol spritzes on the Corso. We did also visit the huge public fish market, which had a very impressive selection of fish for sale. Equally impressive was the beautifully sculpted portal marking one of the market entrances. When we woke up on the Thursday morning, that was on our second full day, we found the main street transformed into a bustling market where locals and tourists alike shopped and socialised. Apparently, this weekly market has been running since 1852 and is an integral part of Chioggian tradition. It's Friday morning and we're getting ready to leave Chioggia. What a great place. So we're going to try and take the ferry this morning. We'll first take the ferry to Pellestrina. We'll be following EuroVelo 8 on our way to Lido. This route that we'll be taking up towards Venice is also known as the Venice Islands cycle path and involves a couple of short ferry rides. Here we're at the south end of the island of Pellestrina, where we get our first look at the Murazzi, the wall of Istrian stone built in the 1700s along this chain of narrow islands forming the outer boundary of the Venetian Lagoon. The wall was built as a breakwater to protect these islands, the lagoon and Venice from sea storms. The whole island of Pellestrina has a population of about 4,000, and life here is very much centred around fishing. Pellestrina, the village, was the first community we rode through after leaving the ferry. Further out from the dock in the lagoon, you can see lots of fishing huts on stilts. Riding along the lagoon, you see fishing boats moored in front of brightly painted homes. And word on the street is that the reason for the bright colours is so that the fishermen can pick out their homes more easily as they return in the foggy mornings from a night of fishing. So this is actually part of EuroVelo 8, this route along Pellestrina leading north to Lido. So peaceful here. Pellestrina is just a very narrow bit of land. So we have the lagoon on our left, and about 300 or 400 meters to our right is the Adriatic Sea, kept out by a big long stone wall. There was something very special and memorable about our ride this morning. We saw no other tourists, and the fact that it's the end of September may have a lot to do with that. But this seems to be kind of a forgotten place off the main tourist track, and completely charming in the simplicity of life here. The sheltered waters of the lagoon providing a tranquil backdrop for life's daily activities. It's a place where people know each other, and a stop for a coffee or a beer in the local bar means a friendly word with your neighbours.
No, esa polla que usa es paura. No mai foreste da fora de fininho.
It's so nice. It's so enjoyable and relaxing and quiet. I love it. You don't want to rush this.
I caught a glimpse of you out on the road, quiet like a dove. You're whispering a secret.
Riding along here feels like you've just stepped back in time. Time has stood still here, and no one's in a hurry. So charming.
Trying to go, lost in the sight of you alone. Here I'll stay till dawn. The breeze in the sky sings me a song. Here I'll stay till dawn.
After only about 12 kilometres, we had reached the northern end of the island and the community of Santa Maria del Mare, where we catch the ferry to our next island, Lido di Venezia. That was a lovely ride on Pellestrina. It's only 12 kilometres long, but it was so enjoyable, and like being in a different world. Farther north to Lido, where As we approach the south end of Lido, we're crossing what is the deepest of the channels through these barrier islands, and thus the one used by oil tankers and container ships to gain access to the main port of Venice. The buildings we see on shore here are the headquarters for the pilot boats that guide the ships through the channel. Cruise ships use the not so deep but wider channel to the north of Lido. The southern portion of Lido was very quiet, but yet already had a much more modern feel to it than Pellestrina. As we approached the community of Malamocco, we were beginning to get distant views across the lagoon of the city of Venice. After Malamocco, our route took us over to the east side of the island along the sea. Now we've switched over to the Adriatic Sea side of Lido. We were now getting into the town of Lido itself and starting to see the more glamorous side of the island and the upscale beachfront residences and hotels. Wow, this is the whole Hotel Excelsior. I'm sure this is where we would be staying if we weren't camping. Haha. But it's very convenient. You can take a water taxi right from here into Venice. But it looks so moorish. So Lido's beach strip looked a lot nicer and a little classier than the unattractive beach strip in Chioggia. This place has a bit of style. Lido has been popular at least since the 1800s, when it was known as a place where folks would come for the seaside resorts as well as for therapeutic sea bathing. It has attracted poets and writers as well as the rich and famous. In the early 1900s, it was known as the Golden Island, and there are many Art Nouveau style buildings still to be seen from this era. The Grand Hotel Ausonia and Hungaria, with its very ornate facade, dates from that era. Nowadays, Lido hosts the Venice Film Festival annually. So, here in Lido, everything looks very civilized. It's very quiet. It really is the end of the tourist season for the seasidey places. The campground that we're going to check out now closes in 3 days. Things are winding down. They're cleaning up all the beach huts. It's kind of a nice time to be here. So we had heard about a campground with very good reviews here in Lido, and we phoned ahead to check if we could camp there, and we were told we could. So that's where we're heading right now. We're not really sure what to expect. So here on Lido, we are just across from Venice. So you can kind of hear the hum of the city and the ferries and yeah, just a general buzz, hum. There's lots of ferries going back and forth here through the different channels. So Venice is across there, and our campground is just in here, and it's really secluded. The campground turned out to be perfect, and we dined on supplies we had bought in a supermarket in Lido and had a relaxing evening looking across at the sun going down over Venice. Okay, it's Saturday morning, and this little campground turned out to be just a gem. It's so quiet, secure, and away from the crowds. And just outside our gate is the Venice Lagoon. So we have a couple of days to explore the Venice area from our headquarters here at this campground, and today we've chosen to visit Burano and a lesser known island called Torcello. We have been to Venice before, and we've visited the island of Murano, and I always get Burano and Murano mixed up. Burano is famous for colourful houses and lace, and Murano for its glass making. So we're just going to ride down into the centre of Lido, where the ferry leaves from. I think this is the ferry we'll probably take when we leave the island with our bikes. Lido does have two boat docks. This one, very close to the campground, called Lido San Nicolo, is for the car ferry that connects Lido and Tronchetto, which is the main dock at the end of the causeway to the mainland. And in the centre of Lido town, 2 kilometres from the campground, is the main and very busy waterboat or vaporetto terminal, with extensive boat service connecting all the different islands, including Venice and Piazza San Marco. We're heading there to get a boat to Burano. Here we are in Burano. This is one of the most northerly islands in the lagoon and is almost completely occupied by residential buildings. We whiled away a few hours strolling around and people watching from an outdoor patio where we had lunch. The island was probably first settled by the Romans, and in the 6th century was occupied by people from the once important Roman town of Altinum. Altinum is the town at the terminus of the other branch of the Via Claudia Augusta. Burano became important in the 16th century when women on the island began making lace with needles, and this lace became popular and was exported around Europe. The colourful homes on the island are very photogenic. But homeowners here can't just paint their homes any old colour. They have to send a request to the government, who will tell them what colours are allowed in that particular lot. So now we're on our way to Torcello. Torcello is quite the opposite of Burano, quiet and sparsely populated. Although it was one of the very first of the Venetian islands to be occupied, there isn't that much left nowadays of the ancient buildings. But it does have the Basilica of Santa Maria Assunta, which dates back to the 7th century. This is an example of Venetian Byzantine architecture and features stunning mosaics. It is the oldest church in the Venetian Lagoon. So we left our bikes here locked up while we went off on the ferry. Today, let's see if they're still here. Aha! I don't know if I'm happy or sad.
Ja, dan säger vi.
No, I'm happy. Now we get to ride back to our campground. Well, good morning. It's Sunday morning, and we took the plunge and we're here right next to Piazza San Marco in Venice. Took the ferry across from Lido. We just couldn't resist a return trip to Venice since we were so close, and in spite of how busy it is, we didn't regret it for a second. Venice is a magical place that I don't think I'd ever grow tired of. We could probably fill a whole video with our images of Venice, but we won't do that. We'll keep it brief. We wandered, sometimes having no idea where we were, like is supposed to happen to you in Venice. We had a delicious and very reasonably priced lunch somewhere in the maze of quiet streets. And we took the Vaporetto up and down the Grand Canal. All in all, just another lovely day. So we've had a wonderful day in Venice. Now we're going to see if our bikes are still locked up where we left them. I see them, they're still here. And we're almost back at the campground. Home sweet home. I don't want to get up, it's so cozy in the tent. Frank's up already. It's our last day of the cycle tour. Today we're going to take a ferry over from Lido to Tronchetto and then cycle across the causeway from Venice to the mainland. And tomorrow we pick up a rental car. There go our Belgian friends that we had lots of fun chatting with. So, it's Monday. We are the last stragglers in this campground. Today is the last day before closing. And there's one other French guy camping here. It's been quite the tour. It's been amazing. Time for breakfast.
Last day in the campground.
Yeah, I know.
Not last day in the campground. It's a last day, but also for campground it's a last day.
Yeah.
They are closing for the season.
Is your croissant warm?
Of course.
Time to go.
great place to camp, camping San Nicolo. Can't recommend it highly enough. Such a great location. And secluded, but yet a short bike ride down to Lido ferry terminal. Last official day of riding on our tour. Bye Lido!
Ecco il mio cuore, I'm giving you all my love. Sempre sarai tu il mio amore, my darling, my angel, my dove. If ever you would leave me, I think I would lay down and die. Oh, ecco il mio cuore, now tell me your heart is mine.
Okay, we just got off at Ferry from Lido, and now our plan is to ride across the causeway. Get over onto the mainland. See how it goes. We're on the causeway now, at the beginning of the causeway, and we're going to ride across there to the mainland. I think there's a bike path the whole way, or a bike lane. So here goes.
Here we go.
The causeway is 3.8 kilometers long, and the cycle lane runs along its south side. You're completely separate from the traffic, so from that perspective, it's easy peasy. Once we reach the end of the causeway, we're going to navigate ourselves to a hotel we have booked here on the mainland in Mestre. And tomorrow we'll pick up a rental car, because then we have 6 days before we fly home, so we have time to do a bit of a car tour. Okay, the deed is done. We got bike boxes. We paid for these once. We've never paid for them before, but it'll save a lot of hassle. And this was just beside our hotel in Mestre. So this is the official end of our cycle tour, now that the bikes are packed in the rental car. They're going to have a rest while we do a car tour of some Italian towns we haven't seen before. Then we'll drive back to Venice to fly out of Marco Polo Airport. The bikes got packed in their boxes somewhere along our travels. These boxes turned out to be very flimsy and far too big for our bikes. We had to do a bit of cutting down. Well, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed that the bikes survive intact. Before flying home, we made one more stop to round off our Footsteps of the Romans tour. Very close to Marco Polo Airport is a little place called Altinum. Not much more than a lot of corn and soybean fields these days. But here is the site of the former ancient Roman city of Altinum, which thrived between the 1st and 5th centuries AD. The archaeological site here is still being actively researched, and adjacent to the site is quite a new museum, where findings from the site are nicely presented. Altinum was among the most influential cities in northern Italy during Roman times. Connecting it with the city of Tridentum, modern-day Trento, and the northern reaches of the empire was the Via Claudia Augusta, the Altinum branch, the section of this Roman road that we did not cycle. We took the other fork in the road back in Trento. There was an intersection here in Altinum with several other important Roman roads, so there were land connections with prominent towns like Aquileia and Ravenna. And the city was a major hub for the heavily travelled sea routes through the Mediterranean. Various factors eventually led to the demise of Altinum. The city was destroyed by Attila the Hun in 452 AD, and other invasions eventually caused the population to move to more defensible locations in the lagoon, Torcello and Burano being the first islands inhabited, and eventually the city of Venice started to grow. And then it was time to take to the sky. But not before doing what I'm going to call the airport jig. Marco Polo Airport seemed particularly awkward to get through with the bike boxes. And we're ready to go home. This is a ridiculous airport to maneuver around with bike boxes. Up and down elevators and stairs. Oh, we feel your pain. And then the boxes were too wide for the X-ray machine, and it took a really long time before somebody finally came to assist us and put them through on an angle. Well, it seems a long time since we set off from Frankfurt. That was 6 weeks ago, on August the 25th, and today is October the 6th. Our cycle journey was spread over 5 weeks, and we cycled for 28 of those days. Granted, the last 2 days in the Venice area, we cycled only very short distances. We loved it all, but we're ready to go home now. So thank you for joining us on our journey. We loved reading your comments on the first 9 episodes, and we hope you've enjoyed this one too. Take care, everyone, and maybe we'll see you again on a future adventure.